Hello, everyone. I am Jen Bordeaux, the Director of Public Relations with New Direction Family Law, and I am joined by Joy Forrest here from Called to Peace Ministries. We are right around the corner from October. Monday is October 1st, which is one of my personal favorite months because it's also my birthday month, but
My birthday's today.
Oh, well, happy birthday. Look at that. So we, for October in our line of work, October is very important because it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we are going to be doing a small part here to support a wonderful local organization that Joy is going to speak more to in just a second. We're doing a couple of things. So for the entire month of October, every consultation that comes in, there's a fee that's associated with the consultation, and a portion of the proceeds from every consultation fee will be collected and donated to Call to Peace Ministries, as well as on Tuesday, October 16th, at Linwood Brewing Concern in Raleigh, we are going to be hosting, they do charitable nights, and Tuesday night, Call to Peace will be the beneficiary of that charitable night on Tuesday, where $1 for every beer sold will go to Call to Peace as well. So if you've never been to Linwood Brewing, it's a great atmosphere. Beer's good too if you're a beer drinker, and it'll be supporting such a wonderful cause, which is the perfect time for me to turn this over to Joy. So Joy, please introduce yourself and talk about the wonderful work that Call to Peace does.
Well, thank you, Jen. And so we're talking October the 16th, and we hope you'll come out. You say it's a family-friendly environment,
yes,
right?
Family-friendly, dog-friendly. We have games.
So this is a great birthday gift for us, and for me, and for Call to Peace. Call to Peace is a non-denominational nonprofit. We have faith-based support groups in the Raleigh area. We do domestic violence advocacy. A lot of times even, help with women who are trying to get their churches to understand. They don't want to leave their churches, so we may go in and help do training with their pastors, and if they'll listen. We do conferences twice a year. We've got one coming up in October, Justice to Light, which is the 12th and 13th of October. We work with victims from all backgrounds and all faiths. It's just that we have found that a lot of times people stay in bad situations because of their faith. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that we can speak to. We work we work alongside shelters. In fact, we have basically a partnership with a shelter up in Lewisburg, North Carolina. We also have an emergency fund, so we can help somewhat with household bills, but our budget's small. But we really are here. We are very, very busy helping particularly women who have been displaced by domestic violence or affected by it. We do counseling as well, and advocacy. So anyway, we really appreciate this opportunity to raise some funds and raise some awareness.
And I think with domestic violence, everyone knows that it goes on, right? But it's something that's in the shadows that no one really talks about, but it is such a need in every community, but we're in Wake County in surrounding areas, and so we're focusing on the need in our community and supporting those that we can. So can you speak a little bit to the prevalent need for, just how rampant it is? Think one statistics like 1 in 3 women, just in Wake County alone, will be affected by domestic violence. So can you speak a little bit to that?
I could speak to that particular number. That was a survey done by the American Medical Association back in the 1980s. And I remember taking it. It was a very long survey. It had more things than that. And on the survey, it said, have you ever been questions like, have you ever been physically abused? Are you in an abusive relationship? I lied about every single one of them. So I'm thinking the number could be higher. Sure. I thought they were going to come and try to intervene. And even though they said it would be kept confidential at that time, I didn't tell the truth. And then, too, the way people perceive domestic abuse is that it's a physical thing, but it's also emotional, and just coercive control is what is at the heart of it. And so when you look at those numbers, it could be much higher.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think one part of abuse that people don't think about that we see quite a bit as well. Absolutely the physical part, which is terrible, but as you mentioned, there are several different types. And one of those that a lot of people I don't think really consider is financial control and abuse as well. And we see that oftentimes whenever a spouse, generally the wife, is coming into us, and it's taken a lot of work just to even get them to that consultation because they've had to be so careful in finding out ways And then the financial aspect of, I've wanted to leave for a long time, but he controls everything. I have no access to individual access to bank accounts or, credit cards or anything. And so that's very scary if you were to think that, I can't get out of a situation because, life requires money and you don't feel like you have anything of your own. So, and then bring children into that. And it just, we could talk for days about it, and it's so heart-wrenching. And so we work with, in our office, we assist with obtaining domestic violence protective orders and putting people in contact with resources that can help them in these terrible situations to get out and have a life that they want and deserve, and to get past this. And I can't thank you enough for the wonderful work that you do. So how did Called to Peace Ministries come about?
Well, I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I lived through it. I got out back in 1996. I finally gave up and left for good. I left in 95 and kept trying to work on my marriage, and things kept getting worse and worse. And when I was trying to get out, I kept reaching out to people for help. I went to my church. I went to counselors. I even, obviously finally had to go through the legal system. I had him arrested. Arrested up there meant just come to court in a month. And that just made him angrier. I would call the police wouldn't show up. I went to court. The court acted like it was a mutual thing, that I was just as guilty as he was. It was just, everywhere I turned, it was like there was this roadblock and nobody understood. So there was a day when it got particularly violent. Mine did get physically violent, and when that happened, I said, God, if you just help me live through this, I will help other women. So once I moved back to North Carolina, which is where I was from, I started helping women like on a one-on-one basis. And then in 2000, I had to help a lady go to a shelter because our pastor had told her abusive husband's father where she was, and he showed up at my house. So I ended up having to take her to a shelter and told the shelter a little of my story, and then they called and asked me, would you be willing to speak at our conference, or like at our candlelight vigil? It's an October event. Mm-hmm. Back then I was petrified of speaking in public. And so I said, but I knew, I just felt like, so in my heart I had this, a determination to make a difference, and knowing, really truly for me it was God and my faith that really brought me through it. So I said, all right, God, I know you didn't bring me through all this to keep my mouth shut. So I went and spoke, and that was amazing enough, that I actually got over my fear. But then after that, they called me about a week later and offered me a job as their spokesperson. So that is, to me, that's a God story. So that was number one. And in that time, I kept trying to reach out to churches and try to help them understand. Churches didn't want to be educated by the secular shelters, but it was not, my efforts were not that successful. But in the meantime, women were just coming into the shelter. Why did my pastor send me back into this abusive relationship? And it seemed like to me that that instead of even helping, and I know they did not intend this, but they often made things worse. So that really was bothering me. And then I read a statistic at the time that 60% of women who go through domestic violence will reach out to their faith leader first. So we're looking at a whole untapped territory. Sure. So that's where we really wanted to be able to focus. So that was in the year 2000 and 2001 that I worked there. And then in 2004, I started seminary, got a degree in biblical counseling. Again, did all my papers and research on domestic abuse, all the time working with victims, counseling through my church and so forth. And so, again, I don't know, finally in 2015, it happened. I said, this is it, we're going to do something. And I said, anybody interested in a domestic violence ministry? And about 12 people showed up, and we had a meeting and we started it. And then we didn't get our nonprofit status until the end of 2016. 2017, we started our first support group, and by the end of 2017, almost 200 women had reached out to us. Wow. This year, it'll be at least triple that.
So that's, it was starting in 2015, you said, and then actually becoming a nonprofit end of 2016. And then, so just in the year, by the end of the year, 200 women, and then if you're looking at close to 600 or so this year, that just that's a very small snapshot of the need for services like this. And so I'm whatever led to the path that you recognize this need, and you've been able to help bridge that gap. And I think a big key, obviously treating the families that come to you as well, or come to the organization as well. But the other key component that I really like is the educational piece that you help to provide for, different churches and leaders in the church and stuff like that, to help them understand, how they can approach this a little bit differently, so that they're not contributing.
Yes.
And I don't mean that in a negative way, but contributing to that cycle.
Well, it has. It's happened. And in fact, I just did an interview with the president of the seminary here in Wake Forest, and he was saying, we've missed it. We had such a high view of marriage, we forgot about the lives that were in those marriages. Mm. And so, can I put a plug in for our conference?
Sure, absolutely.
We do twice a year. We do conferences. We're probably going to knock it down to once a year. I was just telling Jen, it's a lot of work. And this one, we would really love for anybody who's interested in coming to join us. It's called Justice to Light. It comes from a scripture in the Old Testament that says that God brings justice to light every morning. And the thing that we see with domestic violence is that victims of domestic violence face injustice after injustice. The courts really are not trained to deal with it properly. CPS will go into a house. I have seen that go back, turn around and burn victims over and over again. In fact, I had a situation where I had proof that the abusive husband was abusing the child as well. Mm. When CPS went in, that man was so smooth and charming that it turned on the woman. And so we see things like that all the time. Churches have traditionally not understood. The more and more are starting to wake up and realize it. But we want to be able to help people to understand what these folks are going through. They're dealing with PTSD most of the time. I have Dr. Pam Perkins, who we both know, who's going to be speaking on some of the mental health issues that make it harder for victims to move forward. We'll have actually three counselors speaking. We'll have Tony Marita, who's one of the pastors of Imago Dei Church, and that's where we're going to hold it, October 12th and 13th, Friday evening, most of the day, Saturday. We always have resources for survivors, victims and survivors of domestic abuse, and this will be helpful to them, but it'll also be helpful to anybody who wants to learn how to help effectively. And until you know what somebody's facing, it's pretty hard to be a good helper, and that's one of the reasons we want to focus on these injustices to begin with, and then we're going to give specific tools on how to deal with it so that they can be helpful and know how to help. Because this is one of those things that if you don't know how to help, you're much more likely to do harm.
With that, so October 12th and 13th, the 12th is my birthday. So as a birthday present, I would love for you to go enjoy this conference. If you're interested and learn so much, learn how you can be of help to this population in the community that definitely needs all of our help and support in whatever way that we can get it, but also learn the appropriate way and the best way to do that as well. So with that being said, if people want to find out more information about the conference that you have coming up next month, as well as getting in touch with Called to Peace Ministries, what is the best way for them to do that?
Through our website, and it's called topeaceministries.org. So CALLEDTOPEACE, calltopeace.org. And there's information about the conference on the front page, and there's a link to go and register. So we would love to see folks come out.
Okay, and then what about anyone, whether it's maybe a concerned family member, they are concerned about their family, can they reach out, or does it need to be the person who is in the abusive situation, or how does that work?
We talk to concerned helpers all the time. I mean, this conference would be great for somebody like that. We tell them the do's and don'ts of working with domestic violence victims. Again, and this is, when we say domestic violence, we're not just talking about physical abuse. We're talking about destructive relationships that are hurting people, and our goal in life is as a ministry is to help people maintain safety and sanity. So it's more than just safety and getting out of a physically abusive relationship. It is also, sometimes this can actually cause health problems, mental health issues. And so, we want them to get them to a point that they are safe and sane. And I know that a lot of people like to focus on the marriage. We're not here promoting divorce, but we are promoting safety and sanity.
We get that as well with New Direction. Oh, you're out there just handing out divorces like Oprah. Yeah. No, not at all. We want everyone to be safe and be in happy and healthy relationships. Yeah. That's the biggest overall thing.
And if somebody does want their relationship to work out, actually separation is step number one. Because consequences and there's a game plan that's possible in some of these situations. Sometimes you can't make it work, but if you're going to make it work, there's a specific path you have to take, and it's definitely not marital counseling and traditional, remedies for normal marriages.
Gotcha. And then, so if someone who is in a domestic, abusive relationship, what is the best way for them to get in contact? Is it a line that they should call, or contact you via website, or all of the above?
We prefer, at this point, we do not have a hotline set up, so
Okay.
we prefer that we do have a phone number on our website as well. It's 919-374-0778, but we really prefer emails.
Okay.
And because of just the volume of people reaching out to us, it may take us a little while to get back to you, but we will.
Okay, awesome. Well, Joy, thank you so much for joining me today, and we are looking forward to the small part that we're going to do in October to help bring awareness and support and raise some funds for Called to Peace. And if you guys have any questions about Called to Peace Ministries, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in contact with Joy, or to reach out to Called to Peace directly, as well as we're so happy that we could be a resource for the legal side of, because there are a lot of questions that go into that as well. So you can always write to me, Jen Bordeaux at New Direction Family Law, for more information about either the firm or about Called to Peace as well.
Well, let me say one word about the firm.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't prompt this.
No, but the thing is, not everybody gets domestic abuse, and that includes attorneys. So we really appreciate it. I went down and spoke to Elizabeth Stevenson, being also she was a social worker, I believe, before. And so it's really important to find an attorney who understands the dynamics of domestic abuse. So I really appreciate that about New Direction. So,
Thank you so much.
And I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Right.
It really is our pleasure. It's funny that you mentioned Elizabeth. She actually tuned
saw
in.
it.
She's watching and says, thanks for bringing awareness to the
Hey,
important
Elizabeth, thank you
topic.
so much.
Awesome. Well, again, Joy, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to see you. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We hope to see you on the 16th if you're able to come support us at Linwood Brewing Concern, which is over off of Whitaker Mill in Raleigh. And again, if you have any interest or desire, or want to find out more information about the Justice to Light,
Yes.
Yeah, Justice to Light conference by Called to Peace Ministries, please don't hesitate to reach out to us either. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you in October.
Thank you so much.